Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to the video on the channel. What we have for you today is a quick 5-minute wildcard video going into game week 26. Now we've kind of got the FA Cup fixtures out of the way. These blanks and double game weeks are a bit more settled, and we can start formulating our plans for the future. So if you are new to the channel, any support is greatly appreciated. So please do like and subscribe. Really appreciate all the support we've had on the channel so far this season. And whether you're wildcarding or not, I think I personally am not going to be wildcarding, but I think this video will hopefully give you some insight into potential transfers you could use for your team for the next few game weeks. So we're going to start with teams to target, and our first team to target is going to be Brentford. Now, two doubles in the next 4 game weeks really bodes well. I especially like that first double game week against Everton and Southampton. I think that's a great set of fixtures from both a defensive and an attacking point of view. And Brentford players will be someone you should be targeting, especially with Wolves and Villa towards the end of this run of 7 game weeks. Next, we've got Brighton, and again, like Brentford, they've got two doubles coming up in the immediate future. They do also have a blank, so you have to be aware of that. There's quite a lot of blanks in game week 28, but you might be considering a free hit then as well. So if that is the case, then it doesn't matter. But if it isn't the case and you've used your free hit or you're planning on it a different time, it is worth factoring in that you maybe need to sort of plan some transfers around that game week to make sure you've not got too many players blanking. After the double game week in game week 29 as well, the fixtures do turn a little bit. So, whether you want them for the immediate future and then to get rid of them for the blank, or whether you want to do that after the Brentford and Bournemouth game weeks, that's kind of up to you. Next, we've got Spurs, and I do really like Spurs fixtures. Wolves, Forest, Southampton, Everton, and Bournemouth are again great from a defensive point of view, dare I say it, for Spurs, but they have been keeping clean sheets more recently, and Kane is always going to be a threat, especially against these sort of teams. Teams to avoid, and we're going to start with Newcastle. I really don't know what to expect from Newcastle. I feel like historically, putting a load of effort into the League Cup in the middle of the season can really hamper a team's form. It's not like the FA Cup, which is at the end of the season, then you can go on a break. The League Cup is something you, especially in a final, you want to put all your effort into it. And then you've got to kind of pick up momentum. We kind of saw Newcastle a bit more distracted before the final in the most recent game week. And I think form is something you just can't switch on and off. And a lot of teams around them are also um, kind of getting into form at this time of the year. They've got the experience to push for top four. And immediately with Man City is not a good fixture. Wolves and Forest, I think, if you've got someone like Trippier, these teams to avoid, it's not saying you have to sell all your Newcastle players. But I think, one player from Newcastle in Trippier is probably good enough right now, and it's really sort of saying rather than get rid of all your players, there's no real need to buy any more in. And the same can be said for Liverpool. I think if you've got one, maybe even two Liverpool players, that's okay. But that really tricky double in 29 combined with that blank in 28 doesn't really sort of mesh that well with me. I think after the Arsenal game, that will be the time to get in Liverpool players. But, I think one is definitely enough if you're looking at getting Liverpool into your team. Finally, we've got Man City. Again, like Liverpool, they've got a blank, and the Liverpool game as well in game week 29. Fixtures aren't terrible, but the problem we've got with Man City is they're usually fighting for trophies on multiple different fronts, and the rotation risk as well. A few weeks ago, it didn't look like Foden was getting a look in. Mahrez was the player to get, and then all of a sudden it switched, and now Foden seems to be the player to get in, and Mahrez isn't getting any minutes. So it's kind of impossible to predict. I myself am going to avoid it. Obviously, you've got Haaland in anyway, so you are covering the Man City bases, but you don't want too many players in your team that are blanking in 28 if you're using a wildcard, unless you are planning on free hitting. So into the team we go, and as we get it on the board, we have got quite a few Arsenal players in. As you can see, we've got the triple up here, and Arsenal do have Bournemouth, Fulham, Palace, and Leeds in the next four. They are great fixtures. I've gone with Zinchenko here because he has the high attacking threat. I do think he's nailed on now. He's such an important part of the team, and he is captain, I think, when Odegaard isn't around. So you could be saying that Tierney is fighting for his minutes, but I think Zinchenko is first choice. when the going is good. Brighton, although they have that blank, they still have 5 games in 4 game weeks, and those fixtures are good. I've gone with Sanchez in goal because I like the defensive sort of setup at Brighton. I think also when they blank, Forster from Spurs, they have Southampton, so I think that's a good rotation with Sanchez to cover that blank. Mitoma has shown good form, especially in recent game weeks. Not returned super recently, but I think he is a player that is very pivotal for the way Brighton play. And as we said previously, a big fan of Spurs' fixtures. You know, someone like Kane, I think, is scoring consistently, or at least getting attacking returns consistently. So I'm not bothered about the Spurs double up here. And well, even triple up, really, if you're going to play Forster as well. I've gone with Davies. I think he has more attacking threat in the Spurs defence. And since he's been playing left wing back, he's really been pushing up into midfield as well, which is only going to be positive for bonus points. I never really thought I'd be getting a Spurs defender in on a wild card, but the fixtures combined with the recent clean sheets, it just look really good. We've still got Rashford in the team. You know, although he has a blank in 28, I think he's someone that at his price of 7.2 million at the moment, he is somebody you absolutely have to get in. Just the upside is too much. And I think you can rotate your squad to manage that blank. I think, you know, blank game weeks, if you can get 10 players out without decimating your team or, you know, taking loads of hits and then realizing you don't actually want those players long term, I think too much can be made of blank game weeks, to be honest. I mean, look at the most recent one we've just had. You know, a lot of points that we spoke about and we predicted came from clean sheets from Liverpool and Arsenal players. You know, the attacking players from Arsenal were good, but on the whole, it was quite hard to predict. And Arsenal did actually get a lot of those points in that win against Everton. That initial game that they had didn't really lead to much. I've gone with Rico Henry as my third defender here. Um, I do think that Brentford, with those doubles, are pretty good. Henry has, you know, not only is he a bit cheaper than Ben Mee, he also has that, you know, chance of an assist. He does kind of get forward a bit more. Um, and I've also gone with Tony in the attack. Now, Tony's got a few off the field issues, but they're not until getting resolved until the start of April. So you have got those double game weeks included in that time span. If, you know, for any reason he does start missing games, an easy transfer to Mbuemo is on the cards, really. The bench is kind of got a lot of Leicester players in it. It's got the sort of the Trippier as well, which is, you know, your Newcastle asset that you probably should still have in just to cover the base. But for me, Leicester have a great run. They've got Southampton, then Chelsea at home, Palace and Villa in a double, and then Bournemouth and Wolves in the next 7 game weeks, with no blank. And to be honest, Barnes has 4 attacking returns in the last 5, so he's the person I've gone to. Madison struggling with injuries and a bit of consistency at the moment, and Castagne's a cheap way into their defence. So I do feel like this team overall is quite well rounded. You know, you can sort of pick and choose maybe alternatives for different players that we've discussed. You might fancy Martinelli instead of Odegaard, for instance, or Mbuemo instead of Tony, or Madison instead of Harvey Barnes. You know, it's kind of up to you in terms of that regard, but I do think it covers both the blank and the doubles coming up. So let me know what you think. A little bit longer than 5 minutes, but not by too much. Hopefully, it's helped you out with your thoughts moving forward. And good luck in the game week. I will see you in the next one.